Good evening. The Yonhap News Service says the chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral William Crowe, arrived in the Republic yesterday to attend the 18th U.S.-Korean Security Consultative Meeting and the 8th Military Committee meeting. The Military Committee meeting took place today, and the SCM will take place tomorrow and Thursday. Admiral Crowe met yesterday with Korean Defense Minister Lee Ki-baek and co-hosted today's MCM with his Korean counterpart, General Chung Jin-kwon. Admiral Crowe isn't the only high-ranking U.S. official in the Republic for the upcoming Joint Security Consultative meetings. AFKN's Steve Johnston is at Kimpo International Airport and says Secretary of Defense Caspar Weinberger arrived in the Republic just a couple of hours ago.
Secretary Weinberger's plane landed here about 4:30 this afternoon. A plane-side welcome ceremony greeted him, as well as a host of dignitaries from the Pacific. His Korean counterpart, General Lee Ki-baek, was on hand, as was the U.S. Ambassador to the ROC, Richard Walker. After a reception indoors, the Secretary made a statement to the press.
You know, I was particularly pleased to learn that we are going to have an opportunity to visit the Olympic Stadium site, where the Asian Games will be held very shortly, and in 1988, the Olympic Games. And I want to assure you again that we'll do all we can to assist in ways that you want to help the bringing about these games with safety and honor.
During his 3-day visit, the Secretary will meet with President Chun Doo-hwan and other ROC and U.S. officials. He's also scheduled to tour several ROC and U.S. military installations, but the majority of his time will be spent at the Security Consultative Meeting. That meeting will coordinate the two countries' defense forces. They're held annually in Washington one year and Seoul the next. This is the Secretary's 6th meeting, the 3rd time he's visited the Republic. Army Sergeant Steve Johnston, AFKN News, Seoul.
Elsewhere this evening, the chairman of the U.S. House Subcommittee on Asian and Pacific Affairs, Stephen Solars, met yesterday with Korean President Chun Doo-hwan. The Associated Press says President Chun hosted a lunch for Representative Solars and other participants of a seminar being jointly sponsored by the U.S. Brookings Institute and the Korean Ilhae Institute. Well, it seems that Philippine President Corazon Aquino has her hands full. Today, she agreed with the U.S. military that a 10-day strike against U.S. bases in the Philippines violates a 1947 treaty with Washington. As tensions mounted at picket lines, Aquino issued a statement saying she will intervene in the strike. Filipino workers at 8 U.S. installations took to the picket lines when talks collapsed on a 3-year collective bargaining agreement with Washington. Also facing Aquino is a challenge by the remnants of the political party of former Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos. UPI says the faction vows to fight the provisional charter Aquino issued last week. That charter abolishes the Philippine Parliament and gives Mrs. Aquino sweeping political powers. Meantime, Philippine soldiers and police are standing guard outside U.S. military bases in the island nation. U.S. service members are being forced to remain on base during the strike by civilian Filipino workers. Pickets have blocked entrances to 8 U.S. military installations. UPI says the police and troops were called out after conflicts between the strikers and those who depend on U.S. troops for their livelihood, mainly bar girls and vendors. U.S. military officials and leaders of the 24,000-member union are scheduled to meet tomorrow to discuss a new contract. Well, last night on the Korea Newsline, Air Force Vice Chief of Staff General John Petrowski said that Graham Rudman is the main culprit behind PCS extensions for Air Force personnel. Tonight, AFKN's Robert Vickers joins us once again as General Petrowski focuses on the subject of quality medical care. Rob?
Thank you, Ernie. Measures to improve medical care is a hot topic in Congress. Plans have been presented to improve medical facilities and to hire additional doctors in specialties that serve dependents as well as military members. General Petrowski says the quality of medical care is improving every day.
Military medical care is improved by any account. For example, while you and I can't sue for malpractice, our dependents can. And malpractice suits against military doctors has declined significantly over the past decade, while at the same time, it's gone up by nearly 200% in civilian practice. The number of days lost by military members as a result of sickness has declined significantly. Now, that can be for a variety of reasons, but I think it's as a result of better medical care. All of our Air Force doctors are licensed or being licensed in the state in which they serve, which is another, I think, guarantee that we have high-quality physicians. Our doctors graduate from Department of Defense medical schools at a higher grade point average than their civilian counterparts by a significant amount. And lastly, no military hospital has ever been refused accreditation, where quite often civilian hospitals are. So I think by any measure, we're receiving quality medical care.
General Petrowski adds that there is quality medical care and available medical care. Quite often, doctors aren't as available as dependents would like them to be. This is a problem being brought to grips as more doctors are being hired for the overall readiness posture of the Air Force. Tonight at 10, we'll take a look at Air Force pilot retention with Air Force Vice Chief of Staff, General John Petrowski. Ernie?
All right, thank you, Rob. The commander of the U.S. Navy's Pacific Fleet says if that service is to overcome the threat of espionage, ways must be found to instill greater patriotism in sailors. Admiral James Lyons adds that the news media has failed to point out that most of the men accused of spying over the past year were motivated by greed and not by ideology. The AP says Admiral Lyons' message to fellow fleet commanders was released shortly after Jerry Whitworth, a retired sailor, went on trial on espionage charges in San Francisco. Whitworth is the fourth man charged as part of the so-called Walker family spy ring. Well, if you live in housing, you know that procedures for getting repairs accomplished has been a slow and tedious process. Well, AFKN's David Pullen says that's no longer the case, because today it was out with the old and in with the new.
Army Facility Engineer Young-san and the Directorate of Housing have been joined together to form one organization called the DEH, or Directorate of Engineering and Housing. In a ceremony held at Young-san to commemorate this organization as the first in Korea, the Usagi commander, Colonel Witten Spiller, gave notice to the most important issue in the creation of this organization.
But for me as the commander, I must say that it will be a pleasure to have one organization to go to when I need something done in family housing. Now, this will not only benefit me, but will also benefit our customers who should realize more rapid service. And that is what we are really about, service to our customers and to their families.
The Director of Engineering and Housing, Lieutenant Colonel John Motes, explains the concept and what it means to the soldier at Young-san.
It'll affect them in a couple of different ways. First of all, the fact that we'll have the Directorate of Housing and the old Area Facilities Engineer Young-san merged together will cut down in a 4-day turnaround in just paperwork that travels back and forth between me and the Directorate of Housing. But that's not the primary thing that it does, although that helps out a lot. The primary thing is that we put now engineer technicians and family housing inspectors from the housing division into the facilities engineer. That's physically located them down here at points where coordination most often breaks down, because the Army has recognized that the two need to be merged together in order that we can provide better service for our customers and we can provide the family housing personnel with the engineer long-range planning type expertise that they need.
Airman David Pullen, AFKN News, Seoul.
Camp Henry in the Daegu area has a new building. AFKN's John Adams reports on the ribbon cutting ceremony for the brand new 6th Support Center.
Completed 2.5 months ahead of schedule by the Chenille Construction Company, Camp Henry's latest addition received its ribbon cutting ceremony as the building was formally turned over to the 6th Support Center. Brigadier General Charles M. Murray, commander of the 19th Support Command, was on hand to express his thanks to the builders and comment on what the new facility means to Korea.
I think, first off, it represents a significant and sincere commitment on the part of the U.S. government, the government of the Republic of Korea. It shows our resolve to remain here. You just don't spend this kind of money if you don't intend to stand and fight.
After cutting the ribbon, General Murray and guests were escorted through the new building by the commander of the 6th Support Center, Colonel Pedro Nahara. The 6th Support Center is the only material management unit in Korea and serves as the link between the resale system in Korea and the wholesale in the United States. Their supply functions are spread across the Republic, serving the Army, Navy, and Air Force. The new two-story building has 48,000 square feet of office, storage, and classroom space, and will vastly improve the working conditions and capabilities for those at the 6th Support Center. Air Force Sergeant John Adams, AFKN News, Daegu.
Coming up this evening, weather with Sergeant Marty Sprankle, Vietnam to return American remains, and a helping hand in the fight for life. Those stories and more when the AFKN News Hour continues.
As an American soldier, you may think I joined the Katusha Corps because it is easier than being a member of the regular ROK Army. That's not entirely true. Katusha soldiers have worked very hard to learn your language and your culture. At the same time, we want to share our culture with you. Let's work together. By taking the time to understand each other better, we can continue to serve proudly side by side.
Good evening. Just another gorgeous day. I guess if you wanted to complain about something, it was a little on the breezy side. But with the warm temperatures, it just made for good kite flying weather. Tomorrow, the winds will die back down, and afternoon highs will be even warmer, possibly making it up to the 70s in the southern areas for the first time this year. The cause of all this nice weather, a strong high-pressure ridge from China into the Sea of Japan. Let's take a look at that on the satellite shot. Actually, that ridge even extends north into Mongolia, and it may remain strong enough to hold off Thursday's precipitation that I was talking about yesterday for another day. But with the quick change in weather systems that this area is capable of, I'll still keep it in Thursday's outlook. That system just does show up there on the left side of your screen due west, and with that other frontal boundary to the north of it, it's setting up similar to the last 5 or 6 weather systems moving through here, where we end up missing most of both of them to the north and south. Hopefully it will do that once again, but we are about due. Around the rest of Asia, 70 degrees in Peking. Hopefully that will advect our way tomorrow. Taiwan, some light rain this afternoon. Vladivostok back down in the 30s under mostly cloudy skies. And Clark Air Base once again well up in the 90s. In the Republic, low this morning 28 in Hangsong, the only station dropping down into the 20s. High of 64 all over the East Coast in Gangneung, Gwangju, Pohang, Busan, and Daegu, with Camp Casey, Kunsan, Seoul, and Jeju-do remaining in the 50s. Forecast for tonight, fair to partly cloudy skies once again with winds southwesterly to northwesterly at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Temperatures will range from the low 30s to low 40s tomorrow morning. Seoul dropping to 36, Camp Humphreys 33, and Kunsan down to 38. Tomorrow, continued fair to partly cloudy skies, winds southwesterly to northwesterly at 8 to 15 miles per hour, and afternoon highs ranging from the 50s to the low 70s down south. Seoul up to 61, Camp Humphreys 64, and Kunsan up to 58. The outlook for Thursday, increasing cloudiness and a chance for rain late in the day. Ernie?
All right, thank you, Marty. Vietnam has agreed to hand over the remains of what are believed to be at least 21 U.S. servicemen and to allow U.S. officials to observe their excavation of an airplane crash site later this month. Pentagon spokesman Colonel Keith Snyder says the remains will be turned over to the United States on April 10th. The Associated Press says this is the second largest set of remains returned since last August, when 24 sets of remains were turned over to U.S. control. Nicaraguan President Daniel Ortega admits that his forces attacked Contra rebel bases and that, as he puts it, the armed camps of the mercenary forces are in Honduran territory. But, says Ortega, we have not invaded Honduras and we have not committed any act of aggression against Honduras. According to United Press International, the leftist leader is charging that the Reagan administration waited until after the legislative defeat in the House to to release its claim of a Nicaraguan invasion of Honduras. And Ortega says the administration wanted to influence the Senate vote. The Senate approved the president's aid package. The human race is a strange breed. We all do things for different reasons, some for money and some for the satisfaction of seeing a job done to its completion. AFKN's David Pullen reports on one person and one program whose value is seen in the faces of children and their parents during the fight for life.
Harriet Hodges started the International Assistance Program some 12 years ago when she sent the daughter of a cook from Yongsan to Phoenix, Arizona's St. Joseph's Hospital. The favor for one child has mushroomed into a full-time job, taking up 365 days of Harriet's year. She spends most of her time trying to raise money for flights to Phoenix through Rotary clubs and private businesses. Everything from a foster family in the States to medical care is donated. Harriet says it's a lot of work, but that's okay, because she's with people who care.
You know, you read so many bad things in the paper all the time that it's really good to meet people that really care and want to take care of children or help you. And it's so rewarding to see a child come back that maybe has never walked, right? And the mother the family are happier. They don't have the expense. The mother doesn't have to carry the child around with her all the time. It's probably one of the most rewarding things that I've ever done.
The children who are able to come to Seoul are first examined by a Korean cardiologist. The clinical report is then given to one of two groups of American doctors that come here each year. They decide in numerical order the most urgent cases. The doctors also travel to see children who are unable to come to Seoul for their initial exam. Harriet says it takes a lot of volunteer time to make the program work, and that starts with people who want to get involved.
We formed a little group called Heart to Heart, and they have Koreans that go to the hospital to interpret, that both Americans and Koreans that are foster families, and we have them meet the children when they arrive and when they depart. And then also the doctors and all the heart team donate their service. The anesthesiologist and the pump man, they all donate. Otherwise, they couldn't possibly do the children.
For people who would like to donate to this program, Harriet says donations can be made to the International Human Assistance Program. She says the money is only used for the children, and that's what's important. Airman David Pullen, AFKN News, Seoul.
MPs were invited to the Yongsan Elementary School today for a question and answer session with children from the 1st through 6th grades. AFKN's Karen Loftis says the event was just one of many planned in preparation for the upcoming Law Day.
2 children from each class in the elementary school got to meet with and talk to MPs. The question and answer session is one of the activities that the kids will participate in while getting ready for Law Day, May the 1st. The MPs answered all types of questions, ones that ranged from motivation to ones about specific crimes and their punishment. The children also got a first-hand taste of handcuffs, and a murder scene was enacted to give them an idea of what really takes place compared to the television police shows. They also got an insight on how far the MP's jurisdiction extends in a foreign country. Today was just one of the activities that the elementary children are involved with to help them be aware of the laws and those who enforce them. Airman Karen Loftis, AFKN News, Seoul.
In this country, Pyongyang yesterday rejected the Republic's proposal for a resumption in inter-Korean talks. The North told officials in the Republic that any suggestion of resuming talks was not reasonable during the ongoing joint team spirit exercise. The Associated Press says that Pyongyang is vehemently opposed to team spirit and has boycotted inter-Korean talks since January 20th. The rejection was in response to a proposal made last week by officials here in the Republic that meetings between the two nations be held in the truce village of Panmunjom on May 14th and in Pyongyang on May 27th. Elsewhere, Korea National Police arrested 69 people and began a 1-month special alert yesterday after a huge opposition rally Sunday in the city of Gwangju. Officials of the opposition New Korea Democratic Party are calling the rally a success and say that the people's yearning for democracy was, quoting now, greater than expected. The Associated Press reports that both police and the ruling Democratic Justice Party are accusing the NKDP of inciting citizens with radical anti-government slogans. And police officials are warning that such illegal agitative actions will not be allowed at future rallies. Olympia 88, a luxury cruise liner, yesterday left Busan on its maiden voyage between the Korean port city and Osaka, Japan. The Olympia, which accommodates over 550 passengers, 67 cars, and 102 containers, will cruise the Busan-Osaka route in just 21 hours. The Yonhap News Service says the Busan-Osaka line was open to promote exchanges between Korea and Japan and to give Korean residents living in Japan a chance to visit their homes in preparations for this year's Asian Games and the Olympics in 1988. Finally this evening, AFKN is your source for sports tonight, starting at 8:15. Don't miss all the excitement of the NCAA basketball finals as the Duke Blue Devils battle the Cardinals from Louisville. Once again, that's tonight at 8:15, right here on AFKN TV. And that's our report for this Tuesday. Be sure and join Tani Sanchez this evening at 10 for the AFKN Late News featuring Nightline. Tonight's Nightline topic is military careers, being all that you can be. I'm Sergeant Ernie Rollag. For Sergeant Marty Sprankle, Airman Robert Vickers, and everyone here at AFKN News, we thank you for joining us and have a nice evening.
The AFKN News Hour, a production of the American Forces Korea Network. In touch with your world.